Hello everyone and welcome to Felix's Spacetime. In today's video, I've got an interview with Shea Ferring, the Chief Technology Officer at Firefly Aerospace. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my Patreon page. There'll be a link in the description. Enjoy. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on here for an interview today. First of all, for those who might not know you, could you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Shea Ferring. I'm the CTO at Firefly Aerospace. I've been here right around 6.5 years. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. And I started my career actually at Arizona State University, where I was given with some other students the opportunity to build our first spacecraft while we were still at university. Orbital Sciences at the time came to us one day and said, "We'll give you a challenge. If you could build a spacecraft that could fit into," at the time we called it a hat box because we didn't have CubeSats back then. This was in the early 90s. And if you could fit in a box about this big, we'll launch it for you. And their idea was they had a spot on the Pegasus rocket that they could fit such a spacecraft. And they basically said the only criteria is it has to do some sort of valuable science, and it has to be what the equivalent today is what's called do no harm. So we had to make sure that we weren't going to jeopardize the main mission because we were just a ride along. And that turned into a career in aerospace, because I was, at the time, I didn't actually know if I was going to go to the aero side or the space side. My degree could have gone either direction. And one fun fact is one of my professors at the time ended up being one of the co-inventors of CubeSat because of that program. So, and the other interesting thing is there was, even though we had about 300 people go through the program, there was a core group of about 30 of us, and somewhere between, I know four specifically people that came out of that program ended up being CTOs or currently CTOs at major aerospace programs. So there's obviously something magic about that program, the professor who ran it, and the opportunity we were all given at such an early age. So ever since then, that really stuck with me to make sure that when I am in a position to do so, I do the same thing for everything from elementary school kids to high school kids to college students. And yeah, so I've always given back, and usually it's in FIRST Robotics, if you're familiar with that competition, where high school kids get to build robots and compete with them. But now that I'm at Firefly, I've had the opportunity to basically do exactly the same thing that Orbital did for us at Arizona State. And so we'll talk more about that. And then, so my background after that, after leaving ASU, graduated with my master's degree. I then went into industry. There was a constellation being started called Teledesic at the time, which was like the 90s version of what is now Starlink, in rough order, basically internet in the sky. It was one of the first companies that was really going after that. That ended up not coming to fruition. And so within a year of the program, I supported that. I supported Iridium. They pretty much canceled the program, and they said, "Hey, I was working for Motorola at the time, which used to be the biggest cell phone company, I think, in the world." And they're like, "You can go work on our next cell phone," which ended up becoming the BlackBerry. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not really interested in cell phones. I'm interested in space." So I left and I started with a company called Analex. But ultimately, I was working on site with a company called Spectrum Astro, which was a small satellite company. And we were building spacecraft, mostly for the military, for the Missile Defense Agency. And that was my first intro into building spacecraft that would be used for defending the United States in case anybody tried to attack us. So that was really interesting. And then I'll sort of speed up here. And then from there got to go to NASA, went to Kennedy Space Center for 4 years. Started to come back west. I went to Albuquerque for a year to work a mission there, which was super fun. It was pretty much in the clean room all day, a mission we ended up launching out of Wallops on the Minotaur. Then I came back to Orbital. I was at Orbital Sciences for about 6 years. And then at that point, I had a key decision to make. This was 2012. I was kind of getting tired of a lot of the negative aspects of the industry, which is there can be a lot of bureaucracy, there can be a lot of risk aversion. So I decided to leave, and I was going to do my own thing, probably get back, just do robotics full time because that's my other passion, one of my other passions. And some friends needed some help with launches on Falcon 9s. And I'd yet to really dive into the new space world. And so I showed up to some reviews, and then 2 years went by in a flash. I ended up working 6 Falcon 9 missions for different customers, from NASA to the Space Force to Iridium to Orbcomm. I helped the Bear Sheet team get their launch, and that just revitalized me for this industry is amazing. The first time I walked into Hawthorne, I just remember like, oh, this is what this is supposed to be. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to be there, but it's incredible. It's full of energy, passion. All the hardware's right there. It just feels like the center of the universe for aerospace at the time. And so that inspired me to do more of that. So I ended up working for a company that did a mission for Google. So then I sort of got that to see how Google does space. So that was a lot of fun. That mission was called Skybox. We launched from India, we launched from Kourou, we launched from Vandenberg, and those are now Planet satellites. They've been acquired several times. And then after that, I did some consulting for friends and things. And then a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, I'm at this company called Firefly. I need you to help me." I'm like, "Okay, I'll try it out." And I came in and I got sucked in for two ways. One, the environment was amazing. The people here are amazing. A lot of people right out of school that want to do great things, and they need some old guys around to help them steer them a little bit. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I love, just helping grow the next generation. But also I thought they needed help with their culture and their customer. When I got here, we were like a rocket engine company. We were advertised as a rocket company, but it was really most focus was on the engines themselves, and which is, arguably the heart of the rocket, but you need the whole rocket to actually make the rocket. And ultimately, you need to understand who your customers are and what your customers need. And so I really helped with that side of the business of interfacing with those customers, making sure the system was optimized as a system, not like just a propulsion system. And yeah, I've been here ever since, and it's been a crazy, crazy ride. Now we're not just a rocket company; we're full end-to-end space service companies with lunar landers, spacecraft, and all sorts of sizes of rockets.
Yeah, so you've clearly had quite a lot of experience, which leads me on to my next question. So you've been working at Firefly for now nearly just over 6 years, carrying out several roles leading up to your current position of Chief Technology Officer. Can you tell me a bit about your previous roles and how they helped you gain the experience for the job that you do now?
Yeah, I mean, without going all the way back in time, my first role at Firefly was sort of a part-time consultant, and it was really to help bridge the gap between, hey, we've been building this rocket for a year now. Now we need to start interfacing with customers, and we need to figure out how do we strategize. So, to be honest, I can't even remember my first title. It was something like director of strategy or something. But I was also helping with mission management. I helped revamp the entire payload users guide. I made the introductions with key customers, and that was all based on experience and relationship I had over the previous 25 years of my career. So I was able to, pull in people that I'd created trusting relationships with, and pull them into the mix and say, hey, if this is what Firefly is doing, get ready. It's going to be a few years, but once we're going, we're going to deliver. And you know, we want to launch your missions, we want to launch your payloads. And then that evolved into there's a maturity element with new space. When I started, we were just under 100 people. And then within a pretty short period of time, we were at 200 people. And when you double the size of a company, you really need to be careful about maintaining culture and going from just a few people just almost working in a garage building pretty rough hardware to get it to work, to actually taking that to quality products that pass engineering and customer rigor, whether it's range safety or whether it's a NASA requirement. You can't just let people loose and build hardware and expect the best. So that evolved me into my next role, which was mission assurance. And mission assurance means a lot of things to a lot of people, but for us, it has three key elements. It's really setting the rules and the gates for how do we do engineering at this company, and then setting how do we test, and then how do we maintain what we've developed with what's called quality assurance. So there's an AS9100 standard, and that just basically means that once you come up with a design, how do you ensure that every time you build it, it is umbrellaed by all the testing and analysis you've done on the design. So that was a big effort to implement that sort of culture. And it was actually wasn't as big as it could have been because we'd spent several years of building stuff, breaking stuff, blowing stuff up. And people started getting frustrated that, hey, I had this thing working and now it doesn't work anymore. It's like, well, that's quality. We need to make sure that every time we build it the same. And so the team was pretty receptive to building quality. And so that was my mission assurance role. And then me and one other guy specifically in the company, it's kind of a group of five of us, but the two of us specifically went off and said, hey, do you know what? We have all these building blocks at Firefly. We call them our Lego blocks, whether it's, our composites core competency or propulsion core competency or avionics competency. Why don't we re-orchestrate these Lego blocks? And instead of building rockets out of those Lego blocks, let's build landers. And yeah, that's a great idea. And it turned out that, NASA had just released this CLIPS contract. So we wrote a proposal and we got onto what's called the IDIQ contract, which I just call it, we got to be put on the menu, right? Doesn't mean anybody's actually going to order us, but we got on the menu. And then we tried for about 2 years to actually get ordered. And finally, we won our first task order. And once we won our first task order, then I transitioned from a mission assurance role to a spacecraft role. And because I led that team for the first year until, again, my whole role in life is to build up an org, build up the people, and then let them lead it. And then I go start something new. That's how I've operated my entire career. And it's really great because then you see other people, fulfill their dreams and take things on. And I don't have to be the owner. I don't have to be the figurehead. I let them take it and run with it. And that really has paid off well for me and then the people that I've been able to help. So, and then finally, we, after we stood up that program, it became very clear that as a company, we can't just have these siloed programs. Even though we're sort of using the same building blocks, we were starting to diverge in terms of how people did their programs. Alpha was very different than Blue Ghost, which is very different than MLB. And so it became very clear that we needed a central engineering organization, a central technology organization to make common practices on how we do engineering. And so that's how I evolved into this newest role.
Amazing. Talking kind of more about these missions, you're a big supporter of the Dream program, and from what I've read, it looks amazing. And I've been doing more research about it as I prepare these questions for this interview. And that's kind of really interested me. I'd love to know a bit more about it, a bit more about what it means and what it does.
Yeah. So going back to how I started the discussion of how I got my first leg up in the industry, I don't know, have you read any of the Malcolm Gladwell books? Outliers is I
No, I
think
don't
one of
even
the
heard of them. No.
keys. Okay, Malcolm Gladwell is a popular author. He's sort of popularized. He didn't come up with it, but he popularized the 10,000 hour rule, which is if you do 10,000 hours of something, then that's what it takes to become an expert. That's obviously a generalization, but there's a lot of basis to that also. The other part of it, though, is if you start earlier in your career, you are likely going to have a leg up for the people who didn't start earlier. Especially when we're younger, we learn faster. So by getting kids exposure to engineering as soon as possible, we help them hone in their focus on where they want to go in life and what they want to do. And to be fair, most people don't really know until they're somewhere in college. and a lot of people think they know. Like I thought I was going to be a fighter pilot my whole life until I wasn't. And then it's like, okay, now what? And so you have to, kind of navigate. So by giving students a chance to build real hardware that's going to space, or it doesn't even have to be space hardware. It could be robot hardware. It could be UAVs, but something where they're hands-on, they're out of the classroom and they're applying what they did in the classroom to something real. It really wires them for success in the future. And when they graduate, they're going to interview so much better because they're not going to talk about, oh, I have a 3.6 GPA and I went to this great school. They're going to say, I built the power system for a satellite that's in orbit right now. That's a much different conversation, right? And all of a sudden, as somebody who's interviewing that person, I'm like, well, I'm not going to hire you as a fresh out. You've already got 2 years of experience, right? Or more. And so you get paid more right out of the gate. You're already starting off with the leg up. And then by having a leg up, Malcolm Gladwell uses the hockey example where you get more playtime now. You're the better player in your age group. So now you get more playtime. By getting more playtime, guess what happens? You get better.
Yeah.
You get even better faster. And so by giving students this opportunity to start early, that's ultimately what we're trying to do for them. And so it's super easy for us to look at excess capacity in the rocket and say, let's not use it or let's sell it. But the reality is selling that is usually not going to be very profitable because it's pretty small stuff. So why don't we give it away? If we give it away, we can have a much bigger impact. And ideally for us, selfishly, we hope that those students that build those spacecraft come back to us and work for us, when they graduate, maybe even as an intern. But even if that doesn't happen, we know that we are feeding the next generation of amazing engineers by giving them early opportunities to do fun stuff.
Amazing. Can you talk a bit more about the payloads that the Dream program is kind of creating and flying?
Yeah, so we've had some we've had so far we've only had a few. We're doing about 3 a year, I think, is our baseline. And it so what we're doing is we put out a call every year and basically say, hey, we have 3 and 6U CubeSat opportunities that we will fly for you. You just need to prove to us that you have a viable program, you have some interesting science, and then you understand the fundamentals of do no harm. I think those are the kind of the three key criteria. So a viable program means that if we give you a free launch, you're going to be able to go out and find the money, or you have the money and you find the mentorship, or you have the mentorship to finish the job, right? We don't want to just give away spots and then nobody uses them, right? Because they couldn't finish the job. So that's one criteria. Second criteria is the science. So what can you do? So we've seen a drag sail, for example. We've seen some novel propulsion systems. Those are the two that are coming to mind. I think some of the other ones are um, pretty straightforward, just communication satellites. I mean, the process alone of building the spacecraft is very value added. But some sort of Earth imaging, some sort of particle detection are some of the things I've seen. CubeSats in general may just be used for like amateur radio. So to give amateur radio more assets up there for amateur radio users to talk to is another option. Yeah, those are the ones that come to mind. I'm sure there's others I'm missing, but it's open-ended to the payload of what they want to do. And then that last thing is the do no harm. We need to make sure that if I have a big NASA spacecraft or a commercial spacecraft that might be worth tens of millions of dollars on top of the rocket, and the rocket itself, commercial price is about 15 million, I can't have a university satellite break during launch that could have negatively impact the entire mission, right? So that's the do no harm element. So we put them through a series of gates, I call them, or test requirements to make sure that they don't damage the mission.
Amazing. So do these Dream programs, will they launch on any of the Firefly rockets aboard, kind of along with any other satellite that you're
There's a customer could have the right to deny us flying an additional payload. Sometimes when a customer buys a rocket, they're very specific that they're buying the entire rocket, even if they don't use the whole capacity. So in some situations, we don't have the opportunity to fly with them. In other situations, people are either buying part of the capacity or they're buying the rocket, they're using part of the capacity, and they don't really care. As long as we make sure that nobody harms them, they don't care. So those are the two opportunities where we would squeeze in a Dream payload every now and then. And again, this year we'll launch 3 times. Next year, closer to 5 or 6. And so to find 1 or 2 opportunities a year should be pretty straightforward.
amazing. And how can people get involved in the Dream program?
So we put out the announcement every year, and I'd have to check. I can get with you offline on exact date. I thought we'd do it around the SmallSat conference, and you have a month or two to respond, and you write a paper basically to say this is what we would do, and this is how we answer the main questions that we asked for, which I summarized a minute ago. And then we get all these in. I think last year we got about 20 applicants, which, given that we're giving away a free launch, hopefully the word gets out and we'll get more like 100 applicants. But we got about 20, and then we down selected to, I think, about 3. And then we made that announcement, and we'll do that about every year.
Amazing.
So I think go to the website or search Firefly Dream Program, and you should be able to find the information on how to sign up.
Truly an amazing program. You're, as you said before in the interview, you're a big supporter of helping the next generation of aerospace engineers. Can you tell me about how you and Firefly Aerospace does this, and a bit more about why that's so important to you?
So so the two, let's see, the three main things we do here at Firefly is we have something called Firefly Academy, and that is a program where we work with our local university, UT Austin, and we have students come out to our rocket ranch, and we show them rocket tests. We help them do their own rocket engines themselves, and we can fly rockets out there, the smaller rockets. So that's what's one way we outreach to the local college. The Dream program is the second key area where we're giving universities anywhere in the world um, the opportunity to fly on our rocket. And then the third is we're a supporter of FIRST Robotics. So several of our engineers are mentors for FIRST teams, and then we fund two local teams. And I want to get to the point where we're the biggest supporter within the Austin area, Austin, Texas, which is a very tough goal because one of the key supporters of the entire FIRST program is based in Austin, so which is National Instruments. But either way, we want to continue to do more of that work. And the why is like I said before, we just one, it's one of the best things you can do if you want any sort of satisfaction in life is to help other people. And then two is again, selfishly, if we can get those engineers later in life that had that early start, they're probably going to be some of the best engineers in the world, and we want them working for us.
Amazing, kind of paying it forward and then kind of getting some of that back for the
Yeah.
company.
Yep. And
What
even if you don't
projects?
get it for the company, you've created those links, right? That you may meet
Yeah,
somebody 20 years from now and say, I started my career with the Dream program. It's like, that's great. And now now hopefully they're successful and they have great stories to share about it.
yeah, definitely. What projects are coming up next for Firefly that you're excited about? They can be anything to do with Firefly or Dream Program specific.
Yeah, we have no shortage of exciting things. So you might have seen that we just launched our fifth alpha for NASA. So we deployed a bunch of CubeSats. That was a mission that was in work for quite a while, and so super exciting to get that one behind us. It was our best performing alpha yet, and we're really hitting our stride with that vehicle. So it's exciting to see just that evolve from this R&D, when are we going to launch the first time, to now we're planning launch 6, 7, and 8, like in concession. So that's really exciting to watch that program mature. In parallel with that, we have MOV that's coming online. It's a massive vehicle that's 16 metric tons to low Earth orbit. It's about 4 meters in diameter. It's a big vehicle, and so that those units are out there at the test facility right now. We get to walk them down. We've been testing that main engine, which is 230,000 pounds of thrust, so significantly bigger than the Reaver. And so all of that is exciting to see a rocket engine test. The bigger, the better. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Um, and then at the end of this year, we are launching both of our spacecraft product lines. So Elytra is going to go into low Earth orbit on Flight 7 of Alpha, and Blue Ghost will be heading to the moon on a Falcon 9. So it's hard to pick a favorite child as sort of I look at it. And every one of those programs builds off the other program, and they're all super exciting. But landing on the moon is definitely going to be a great way to end the year. I don't think we'll actually land right now. The schedule is we'll see how it happens, whether we land right at the end of this year or the first of next year. But it's going to be amazing, and very few people in the world and in the history of the world have ever done this. So we're excited to do it successfully.
Yes, definitely. Well, good luck with that. Um, you've been at Firefly, like you said, just over 6 years. How has the company evolved since you started to where you are now?
So when I started, we were just under 100 people. Now we're at getting close to 800. So we doubled 200, 400, 800. So every time you double, it feels like a kind of a pretty significant evolution of how we do business. When we when we were 100 people, we each wore five hats minimum. So I did most of the business development. I did mission management. I did mission assurance. I did the spacecraft stuff, and I helped with engineering, rigor and process and mission assurance. And so now we've since hired somebody for every one of those roles, and they have their own teams. And so instead of one person doing everything, we've really tried to divide up and bring in experts for those various things. It's it's a constant challenge to make sure we're growing just right. You don't want to grow too fast because more people creates bureaucracy. It slows it down. It it's a risk to your core culture. So you want to be real careful about those things. I think we've been able to maintain a lot of the coolness though of Firefly. The products have always been great, so that's been relatively easy. But it's really empowering the individuals, giving them the tools to be successful, and then letting them be creative and go own their thing all the way through design to launch. And launch being, whether you're launching the spacecraft into orbit and then operating the spacecraft or the rocket itself, by empowering the engineers and giving them a lot of freedom, but then holding them accountable. We found that you get just the best out of people. And we saw this significantly at SpaceX. It's always been my understanding, but to see it in action at how SpaceX did it was pretty obvious that this is the way. And a lot of the U.S. Companies had sort of lost that way. They were probably all like this during the Apollo era, but through failures and risk aversion and bureaucracy, it's sort of all that fun and excitement gets, not all of it, but a lot of it gets pulled out of the day to day. So you want to maintain that empowerment.
Yeah, and with that in mind, how do you see Firefly growing over the next 5, 10 years?
So we're very cautious about spending money and about growth of people, and people cost a lot of money. So I personally don't want to grow. Yeah, I don't want to be a 10,000 person company in 5 years. I don't even want to be a 5,000 person company. I want to be somewhere right around 1,000 people where all of us are just super rock stars. We want every engineer to be trained and to get experience for them to be the best in the world so that they can still have that ownership of large portions of the vehicles and not just, I'm a bracket designer for something and I've been doing the same bracket for 10 years. That sounds like a horrible job, right? You want them to be like, I own the stage and I understand everything about that stage. Or, maybe if you are a bracket designer, you're designing a different bracket every week, right? And you're optimizing and you're the best of the best, which is also super important because that's what holds the components together. And so it's ideally we don't want to grow size wise. We just want to grow capability wise. So whether it's really leveraging things like machine learning and AI in space computing, being the world expert of landing on foreign bodies, starting with the moon. Eventually, we're going to go to Mars. Hope someday we can land on Venus and other places. So we really want to be the premier end-to-end provider.
Amazing. And for my last question for you today, how can people get involved with Firefly if that's coming to work for you or kind of getting involved in general? How can people do that?
So if you're in school, I would say, and in general, if you're in school, whether with Firefly or not, get involved in something like First Robotics or try to apply for the Dream program and just start getting hands-on experience. That's the most important thing any aspiring engineer can do, in my opinion. School is kind of a mandatory. You have to check that box. If you're anything like me, I was a horrible student and I didn't really enjoy school. I enjoyed building things. And and so you make sure you're covering that element. You need to get the degree usually. There's exceptions, but most, go get the degree, but also do something hands-on. Apply for the dream program. If you get it, great. If you don't, it's not the end of the world either. There's nothing stopping anybody from starting to build stuff in their garage or in their dorm room and just be creative and play and practice and break things. We learn the most by breaking things. If you're in the position where you're in a major that is applicable to Firefly, aerospace engineering, electrical engineering, software engineering, physics, and you want to apply for an internship, you can go to our website. We do internships almost year round. There's a couple cycles where you can potentially get an internship here, and we will put you to work doing real stuff. And then ultimately, once you graduate or when you get close to graduating, about 6 months or 9 months before you're getting ready to graduate, make sure you apply to one of our level one engineering roles. And then hopefully we can get you in the door before you graduate. So that people can know, where their career follows. And of course, Austin is a super cool place to live, live music capital of the world, great food here, and you get to work on rockets. So yeah, we think it's really the best of everything.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on here for an interview today. You had amazing answers to all my questions. It was amazing getting to know more about the Dream program, and other things that Firefly does. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Great meeting you, and take
Thank
care.
you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.